Welcome back to another episode of Creating Genius. And today I want to talk about something that doesn't really have to do with genetics. It doesn't really have to do with health necessarily, although it definitely does, but not in the way I've been talking about it. And that is integrating information after you've had a breakthrough. I don't really want to preach about oh, these are the things that you should do when something like this happens. I just kind of want to talk about how it's happened in my life and the things that I do, and maybe you can take something from that. Talking about this, I have to go back about 7 years or so when I got really, really sick. At that time, I was playing tennis at University of Connecticut. I was in the middle of or at the beginning of my sophomore season. I was playing really well. I think I was playing number two on the team. And through the fall, I was playing the best tennis I'd ever played in my life. At that time, I contracted Lyme disease, and I had moved into this house that was off campus that ended up being really moldy, and I found out that I had some genetic disorder that made me really, really susceptible to mold. So, I was having all sorts of brain issues and all sorts of fatigue, and not fun. It ended with me having to leave school in, I think it was October of 2017. And from that, this is now my new reality. I'm really sick. I'm so tired. I'm kind of delirious and delusional. I feel really disconnected from my body. I feel really disconnected from what's going on around me. And obviously, there's a long way to go from there to, getting myself back to full health. Through that journey, I had all sorts of breakthroughs in my health, physically or emotionally or spiritually. I'm very, very grateful for all the people that helped me through that. I had a ton of help from my parents, from coaches, from doctors, from my brother, from friends. The amount of gratitude that I have for all the people that helped me through that time and stuck with me even when things got really hairy there. I just have so much gratitude for them. And I think this is where the integration comes in, because I had so much help from all these people and I learned all these lessons from them. But if I didn't take those lessons and implement them into my life and allow that information to really integrate into my body, into my mind, into my spirit, I would have had the breakthrough. Oh, this is this light bulb moment. Oh my God, I realized something about my childhood that's keeping me stuck in this pattern. And I would have just gone right back to how everything was before. So I think the integration is what allows me to take the breakthrough and really do something with it and really improve my health and my life because of it. A lot of them at this time, they were these emotional breakthroughs that ended up manifesting in my physical health improving, which I think is so cool. And just goes to highlight how, the mind, body, spirit, they're all connected. We're not living in this physical body separate from our emotions, separate from our traumas, separate from the relationships that we have with people. All of these things, they really impact how you show up physically. And I got a crash course in that in, going through being sick and everything. And, when I improved my relationship and my communication with my parents, when I was able to better ask for what I needed, my health improved. When I learned something about my childhood that was causing me to be more reactive, or if I uncovered a pattern where I'm like, holy shit, this is really triggering me, and I figured that out, that breakthrough and implementing it, that improved my health. And I think my evidence for whether I was implementing these breakthroughs or not really came through how is my body doing? Because every time I would have the breakthrough physically, I would start to feel better almost immediately. I knew the day after, I would have a really powerful journaling session or something, and I'd uncover, I don't know, I can't think of something off the top of my head right now, but I would uncover something, and the next day it's boom, I feel clearer. I feel a little less tired, maybe that day I was able to get outside for the first time in months or something like that. I had this detailed record of how am I really doing with all this that was happening in my body, which I think it was so valuable for me to have. And that's something that we all have. getting more accustomed to the sensations and getting more comfortable and connected to our physical bodies is something that we can use to help us give a litmus test for how we're navigating the 3D world. All these things, they're connected. We're not this physical body that's in isolation from the mind, and the mind is not in isolation from the soul or God or whatever ways you want to interpret that. The integration, that was the most important part, because it's like I could have as many breakthroughs as I wanted, and I can get the immediate euphoria and the holy shit moment, and this is so cool, I'm learning so much about myself. But if I didn't integrate it and really take that forward, I wouldn't get any benefit from it. And for me, the best way, consistently, the best way that I've been able to integrate things is by journaling. I basically just sit down and I write stream of consciousness for, sometimes it's like 5 minutes, and it's like, oh, this is what's happening in my day, and this is how I'm feeling, and this is what I wanted to get done, and did I get it done? How did I feel doing it? It's a page. And other times I sit down, not with the intention to really go super deep, but I'll have written for 45 minutes and it's been 5 or 6 pages, and I'm like, I don't even feel like I was the one who did that. It's just allowing my hand to move and allowing whatever comes out to come out. I think the reason why the journaling has been so good for me is because I see it as a release. It's getting the clutter out of my brain onto the paper, and so I have some more space in my mind to fill with new things, new information, new patterns. And I think that's the thing about integration, is like, you have the breakthrough. Okay, awesome. The breakthrough is this new information and unknown, but if you don't create the space in your body or mind to allow that information to come in, then it's going to be really hard to integrate it. And so the journaling for me is how I make space in my mind for new information. I know the mind can hold unlimited information. There's neural connections and neuroplasticity and all of these things that definitely point to the fact that we can hold like unlimited information in our brain. But consciously and even subconsciously, I do feel like it's more about clearing out the waste, defragging my mind so that I can better use the new information that comes in via the breakthrough. Because if I don't clear out that old stuff, the old stuff is hardwired. The old stuff is these neural networks that have been running for months and years, and they can be really stubborn. That's why journaling's been so good for me, because it allows me to get really familiar with the thoughts that are going on with my brain and to literally just move them out. Something that I stand by for sure. And that's not to say that everyone has to journal. Definitely not saying that. It's just, that's what's worked for me. I'm intentional in the fact that I want to use it as something to help me clear my mind, but I don't go, I need to write about X thing that happened. I really just allow it to come to me in whatever way works. And that's been another really valuable part of it, because sometimes in the process of trying to clear out space and trying to wind down from my day and get out all the excess crap that's in my brain, I end up having a breakthrough, and I'm like, oh my God. So it's like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And I did find, especially when I was sick, when I was writing a ton, I would write in the morning, I would write at night, I would find that when I would have breakthroughs, when I journaled, I would be able to implement what happened in that breakthrough much more easily than if it happened when I was doing something else and not journaling. There was something about that process being intertwined that was really powerful for me. And the way that I integrate and process things now has changed. At that point, I couldn't exercise. I was, it wasn't totally bedridden, but getting up and walking around for more than 2 or 3 minutes was really difficult, because I was just so exhausted. Definitely once my physical body started catching up to the healing that I was doing in my mind and my emotions, I was able to implement physical movement way more. And that's probably my big 2 for integrating is movement and journaling. And I'm sure I'll end up saying 3 or 4 things, but those are the linchpins. And movement is so great because it's one of my favorite ways to get present. When I'm running or when I'm playing tennis or lifting or doing something, I'm not thinking about all of the stuff that's going on in my mind. I'm not like, oh, well, this is what I need to do in my next podcast episode, or these are the emails that I have to respond to. It's like, I set the mind down and I just allow my body to move. And it's almost like that same thing where putting the mind down, allowing whatever needs to happen is very clearing for me. It allows me to release emotions. It allows me to release stuck patterns and even clearing out hormones. Like, one of the things about cortisol is when you don't exercise and you get stressed, you have this cortisol coursing through your body, but you're not doing anything with it because there's no actual predator. You're just running over this scenario in your mind and it's stressing you out. But when you go and exercise, you put that cortisol to use. You are clearing out your body of chemicals. And when you exercise and sweat, it's a detox. When thinking about how energy affects our cells, when we have these breakthroughs, we are introducing new energy and new information into our cells. We're forming new neural connections. And a lot of times when forming new neural connections or having our cells take new information, we end up clearing out old information at the same time. And so like every ion in your cell, every protein, every red blood cell, they all have information and they all have clearing processes. Like, our cells are very small. There's only so much information that they can hold, even though we as the whole unit of a human can hold a metric shit ton of information. When we take in new information, there's something that happens where we have to clear out old stuff, and, sweating and moving helps so much with that. Exercise has been really valuable, and it's one of the things, like, I appreciate it so much because it was something that was taken away from me. I couldn't use that as an outlet when I was sick. It was basically for 3 years. Like, I couldn't really do anything. I could go after maybe, I don't know, we'll say 18 months, I could do some 10-minute walks here and there. But, even that, like, it was such a delicate balance where if I overdid it, I would be in bed for, like, there was one time I remember I played tennis. It's the first time I played tennis really hard, and I was kind of like, I feel okay, I should stop now. And, my buddies who I was out with, and not to blame them at all, because, it's weird when you have chronic illness because you look healthy and, everything seems fine, but, like, you're not. And there are things going on in the body that, like, I looked fine. I look kind of like I did now. I think the hair was a little shorter, but, I look pretty similar to how I did now, and I could still, like, walk around and move around. And at that point I was starting to play tennis again, and so they were like, oh, just stay a little longer, it's no big deal, you're fine. And I was like, yeah, I'm fine, I can do it. And I did okay at the end, but for me, what would happen is if I would overdo it, I would be fine in the moment, and then on the back end, that's when I would just get smacked. So that next day I woke up and it was like my brain and body had no energy. It felt like I was just, like, enveloped in this dark cloud, and I was so foggy and I was so dissociated. I was like, I have no idea what's going on. And when I started exercising again, like, that was the risk I ran. So, again, it just makes me appreciate being able to really exercise and do all the things that I do now even more. But, sorry for that tangent. Yeah, all these forms of exercise. It is, to me, I see that as a form of creation, because you are, expressing yourself in different ways than at your resting state. And so I'm taking that as creation. And, it's funny thinking about it now, like, dance is a really, really important part of movement, especially, like, when, thinking about integration. I know, like, when I'm really, really happy, I just want to dance. I just want to, like, mess around and just move my body in, like, weird, funky ways, and not really care about it. I find that sometimes just, like, kind of getting moving and, like, doing, whatever, it just loosens up energy. It loosens up muscles. We sit, like, I sit a lot during the day, even though I don't want to. It's like when I'm podcasting. I guess I could podcast standing up. Thinking about that now, but as up till these episodes, I've done it sitting down, and when I'm meeting with clients and doing work, I sit. And sometimes just getting up and dancing, it's just like this best release, and it just moves energy, and it feels really good. That's another thing I use to help me integrate. As weird as it sounds, it's all about moving and creating space in your physical body for this new information to come. Because again, if your cells can't hold this information, the breakthrough that you just had, it's not going to stick. And when you exercise, when you detox, when you sweat, you're changing your environment. That is 100% what's happening. You are releasing different chemicals. You are sending different signals to your body. So from resting state to exercise is a change in the environment. And a lot of times, the best ways that we integrate new information is by changing the environment to allow that information to come in. And that's what we're doing with exercise. I was listening to some sort of podcast. I don't remember exactly what it was, but they were saying Vietnam War vets who had tried heroin, their recovery statistics for when they came back to the States versus people who weren't in the war and who were got addicted to heroin here. And so if they weren't in the war, the probability that they were going to relapse, even if they went to treatment, was 90%. But for vets, when they came back, even though they've been exposed to heroin over there, when they came back, it was only a 10% relapse. So I think there's something to the environment changing, where it's like this person who gets addicted to heroin here, they go into treatment, they change the environment, and that allows them to change their patterns and change their behaviors, but then they go right back to the same environment when they're done. And those same behaviors come back up because they're back in a familiar environment. And because it's familiar, those old familiar patterns start to pop up again. That's the whole thing with integration, is getting so solid in the new patterns that the old ones don't pop up again, and making sure that that those things don't affect you in the same way. So I think that's part of why exercising and journaling, like, these are things that you're doing to change your environment every time you do it. You're getting information out of your brain and onto the paper when you journal. And when you exercise, you secrete hormones, you send signals, you put your body in different unfamiliar positions, and it's just super valuable. And what are the other things that I found really valuable? Gratitude. I know I hear gratitude like all the time. Oh, you should have a gratitude practice. It's so good for your health. It's so good for everything. And like, the thing is, it is like, there's no way for me in the experience that I've had in my life to sit here and say that gratitude is like overrated or anything. But I think it's what's been really important for me is like actually feeling grateful for what I'm saying I'm grateful for. Because there was a time when I started, and I remember I was like, I'm so grateful for these things. I was trying to convince myself that I was grateful for the experience that I had when I was sick, while I was having it, and while I was in bed, and while I was really not having a good time. And I just kept writing. I was like, I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful. And I, like, deep down, I just didn't believe it. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say, like, during that whole experience that I was really grateful for what was happening. Obviously, now I'm eternally grateful for that experience, because it's helped get me to where I am now. And the lessons that I've learned are so invaluable. Like, if you're going to write something down that you're grateful for, or, not you, me, when I do it, if I write down what I'm grateful for, I don't bullshit myself. I don't try to force myself to be grateful for something that I'm not. I write down what I'm grateful for, if that's the way that I'm doing my gratitude practice. Now it's kind of evolved to where I bring up the feeling of gratitude and what it feels like in my heart or in my chest, in my brain, in my body. And I try to feel that during my meditations. And then I do some writing about it and mention a few things that I'm grateful for every day. But the important thing for me is not bullshitting that gratitude, because your body knows, like, when you're trying to force yourself to do something or be something that you're not. And that goes back to authenticity, where if I'm going to express this gratitude, I'm going to use my fifth center, I'm going to speak it, or I'm going to write it using my arms, also fifth center. Like, that's all about truth and authenticity. And my body knows how I'm feeling about these things. It's the record of that. Me as the mind, I can do or say whatever I want. But my body and your heart, especially, like, your heart knows. And That's why I'm always, when I do gratitude, I'm like, am I really, really grateful for this? Yes, boom. I'm going to write it down, or I'm going to say it, or whatever. No, let it go. Simple as that. There's no other way for me to do it. And, you know, again, I'm not going to tell anyone how to do their gratitude practice. If kind of faking it till you make it works for you, by all means, like, being grateful much more important than not being grateful and feeling gratitude. Like, feeling gratitude is the most important thing about this. And so however way that it works for you, amazing. And more recently, getting beyond gratitude, it's meditations are so helpful. I do Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditations, and sometimes they can be like an hour and a half. I'm just here sitting with myself, letting all this discomfort and bringing up the feelings that I want to feel, and practicing being the person that I want to be during my meditation so that I can do it during my day. There's certain stuff that we do to align the energy centers. At the end of the day, it's all about putting down my analytical mind, putting down what I think I should be, what I am told that I should be, all of the things that are going on in my 3D environment, even my body. It's like, put all that away and just be, and just allow whatever is important in this moment in the internal world for me to come up and deal with it. And there's so many times that I get so frustrated, and my mind won't shut up, and my body's like aching and giving me all sorts of issues. And it's just like, yeah, here we are. I'm taking this time for me. Like, I'm here to deal with these emotions, these sensations, these feelings, all the things that try to pull me back to the old programming. And one of the things I love about meditation is that it allows me to kind of look at those old programs in different ways than otherwise I would be able to. Because sometimes during the day I get caught up in acting out the old patterns, and an hour's gone by and I'm like, damn, I was just acting in unconscious ways. I was letting my body run the show, as opposed to me as the mind kind of being in control of everything. And that's not to say you have to be in control of everything, but it's more about being conscious about which patterns are you okay with allowing to happen, and which ones are absolutely under no circumstances okay. And it's just, the meditation, it makes me take a step back, and I look and try to get really familiar with these patterns, so that when they show up, I'm like, I know exactly what you look like. I know what you look like in every single form that you could potentially pop up in. And, getting really, really familiar with them, and they become your friends, And sometimes I catch myself laughing about the pattern that I'll catch myself in. I would start to do something and start to pick up my phone, and my finger would be right on the Instagram button, and I'd be like, do I really want to do this? And I'd be like, nah, and then I just laugh to myself. The benefit is, and it's all about creating this space to allow you to get more familiar with you. And that's the common theme between the journaling, the exercise, and the meditation. They're all ways where you're clearing out the old and getting to look at the old in new ways. In journaling, you literally see it, you write it out. You're like, this is the pattern that I'm really annoyed at myself for having. And then during exercise, you're physically moving it up. And I don't do a lot of long cardio, but when I play tennis, sometimes things will come up and emotions will come up, and I'll just get so frustrated, and I'll be like, what's more important right now? Like, allowing this mental model to just run over and over in my head, or do I want to enjoy the act that I'm doing? I have to just get present again. And basically it's like the physical action, the workout, the sport is the meditation. It's just like, well, my eyes are open and I'm moving at a really, really fast pace and trying to hit this yellow ball. But that's been one of honestly the most challenging but the most rewarding parts about playing sports again after being sick, after having my experience, and after starting to meditate, because it is so fun to catch myself doing something and being like, is this really serving me right now? Even though things are moving at a very fast pace and I'm trying to be competitive and trying to win and trying to, do the best that I can, just catching those patterns while I'm in competition is like the most satisfying thing ever. because I'm like, if I can catch you here, I can catch you anywhere. And that's just been, you know, just a little nugget of why I have been appreciating being able to exercise, since not being able to do it. And then with meditation, it's the same thing. You're creating space, you're allowing things to be, you're taking a step back and looking at those mental models and allowing the emotions and the patterns to come up in whatever ways they're going to come up. Because, during the meditation, sometimes it's like my knee starts itching and I get so uncomfortable and so pissed off, or sometimes it's a thought pattern that keeps going over and over and over again, or sometimes like, sneeze isn't a great example because you sneeze, but like sometimes I'll have an itch or something and I'm just like, put the body down. This is not the time to be run by the body. This is the time for me as the mind to just hang out and practice feeling the way I want to feel throughout the day. It brings so much awareness and so much light to the rest of my days when I do it. Even the worst meditations, like this morning, I was out on the beach doing a walk and my mind would not shut up. So the way the walking meditation works is do some standing part of the meditation, then you like walk for 10 minutes, then you stand again, then you walk again, then you stand, and then you lay down. And that does sound like a lot, and it is kind of a lot, but I love it. So I was in the second standing part, and my mind is like, can we just give up and go back to the house? Like, do we really need to do this? And I just took a deep breath, and I said, this is my time that I'm taking for me, and I don't care what my body says to me. These slight discomforts are not going to be enough to get me to abandon me in this moment. And that was really powerful. And after those moments, the meditation gets so much better every time. That's a breakthrough. That's a mini breakthrough. That's me confronting an old pattern and being like, I'm not going to let you run this show again. And it's super valuable. I think the beautiful thing about these breakthroughs is if you're really paying attention to them, I know for me, when I really pay attention to them, I'll have 5 a day. I'll be like, these are 5 really cool wins. They're the tiny little things, just like standing in my meditation and my body really wanted to stop doing it. And I was like, fuck that, I'm doing it. Another little one is sometimes after a meal, I'll want an extra piece of fruit. And then, I'll catch myself and be like, do I really need that? No. Sometimes, yeah, but sometimes no. And at least catching myself and asking the question before just unconsciously doing it, that's the win in itself. Sometimes I am more hungry than other times. Sometimes I do want that extra piece of fruit and need it, and that's fantastic. But sometimes I don't. That's all integration, really, because that's when the breakthroughs happened. I think the initial recognition of the pattern has happened, but the old pattern is going to try to come back up again. And every time I become more aware of it, I get better at not letting it run the show. And then at a certain point, I don't even think about it. And that's when you're quote unquote fully integrated. And one of the things I love about integration is that you can really apply it to anywhere and everywhere. When I was thinking about doing this episode, I was thinking, great example of integration is taking tests, because you learn the information in class, but you have to do things to integrate that information into your body, into your mind, to allow you to perform well on the test. Your life is this big test, and you learn lessons in your life, and you're like, do I want to hold on to this lesson? Was this awesome? Yeah. And then you have to, you study. Like every day it's like I'm studying, but it doesn't feel like studying because it's these weird little things that happen in my life and I pick up on patterns and whatnot. It's one of the beautiful things about integration. All right, so the last thing I want to touch on here is it kind of has to do with the testing and the learning and that part of it. But when I'm working on something, if I have a goal or if I have something I want to do in my meditations or something I'm trying to create in the 3D reality, whether it's wanting to heal at that point in my life when I was really sick, or wanting to get back on the tennis court, or wanting to get into school or restart school. There's kind of that big goal. And I realized that doing the preparation work and really understanding what went into achieving that goal was one of the things that set me up for the breakthrough. So if I really understand what I need to do and how I'm going to do this thing and how I'm supposed to feel when I do it, when I have that breakthrough and I do the journaling and I do the exercise and I meditate and I'm grateful, I create the space for the information that I already knew but wasn't acting on to come in, and then I can use it. Because I've found that the integration process starts way before the breakthrough. If I don't understand what's going on, that breakthrough's not going to happen. My favorite one, and this is going to sound a little insane, but there was one day, I sort of had a day where I decided I was no longer going to be sick. I remember I was in Chicago. This was 2019, it was summer of 2019, around my birthday, and I was having a really tough time at this point. I had started trying to exercise again, and I was having these things where I would like overdo it and crash, and then I would spend the next 2 weeks in bed and just trying to get back to doing what I was doing, because it's like, oh, I'm making so much progress, I'm doing so much better, and then I would get back and I would overdo it again and I would crash again. So that became much more frustrating and much more difficult than just being sick every day. I would have these glimpses. I'm like, I got it, I'm back, I'm here again. And then it would get taken away, and then I would get back, and then it would get taken away, and like those little glimmers of hope almost made it harder. And I remember being in Chicago, and I was just so sick and tired of all of these like ups and downs happening, and thinking that I've got it this time, that I'm really going to be able to start playing tennis again, start going to the gym, maybe try to go back to school, and then have it kind of ripped away from me again. I'm so done with it. And I remember we were in an Uber, and I was like, can a pole just like crash down on the car and just hit me and leave my family alive? Like, could the plane crash and have everyone in it survive and be okay but me? And just like thinking about all of these scenarios where like, because I wouldn't take my own life, I wouldn't do that to my family, but just being so sick of being sick that I was like, fuck this, like I want to be done with it all. And and it got to a point where it was like over 3 days of this like happening, I'm like fighting it off, and just it was really tired. And I was like, what if this isn't about me not wanting to be here anymore or me being sick? It's just like, can I just decide that I'm going to be healthy and I'm going to embody being healthy and really make it happen? And so I sat down and I wrote out all of, what I just said, and about how genuinely pissed off I was with my situation, and how, I really wasn't grateful for what happened. And I was brutally honest with everything that I was feeling in that moment. And as I kept writing, I probably wrote like 12 pages. It was a lot. And as I kept writing, it became a little more positive, a little more positive, a little more positive, just as I cleared out that crap, that gunk. And by the end of that, I was like, I'm healthy, I'm healed, I can do this. And so I left it all in that journal. I had a friend tell me that I should burn it. I don't know where the journal is. I don't know. But I don't know where that specific journal is. That's okay, though. But I literally, that next morning, I woke up and I knew I was healthy. Like, I knew it. I don't know what happened. And since then, after that point, I didn't have the setbacks that I was having. I was able to play tennis. And I was careful and everything. But I would push myself harder. I wouldn't get knocked in bed for weeks. Like, the progress just went boom, straight up. And so that's why I say I decided I was healthy. But I think the thing is, I was doing all of this work beforehand. I was figuring out the emotions. I was figuring out the patterns. I was figuring out all of these things that I needed and wanted to do to get me there. And when I had that breakthrough, I cleared out all of the shit that was blocking me from integrating the information, and it just came in. And it was like, oh, that's why I worked so hard to build this mental model and understand everything the way I did about myself, was so that when I was really, really ready to be healthy, I could be healthy. And that to me is just so powerful. And so, it goes back to the integration process starts way before, it starts with the learning, it starts with the work that you have to do, and then you have the breakthrough, and then you have to keep doing the work to keep integrating this stuff, and take it forward. And that's one of the things, I've been so grateful for throughout my experience of being sick, and then getting back into the world, and being healthy again, and all of that stuff is, those lessons that I learned, I've taken them with me, and I've really made an effort to integrate them because I realized how important it was, especially after that experience in Chicago. I kept writing, not in the same way with the same fury and anger and whatnot, but I kept writing about what I was feeling, and I kept checking in with myself, and I was meditating at the time, not in the same way that I am now. And, I started to really allow myself to exercise and to use that as a way to allow myself to create more space between my mind and my body. And that integration, it happened. And I don't know if that's something that's applicable to everybody, but, to me, it's just, I think it's important to share what happened to me because, maybe you can help someone. And that would be my hope. I want to take this sort of last part of the episode and talk about a new business that I want to start going forward, and that is really based around the integration and breakthroughs that we all have. Well, I'm going to call it integration coaching, but it's really about laying the foundation and creating the habits to allow you to take the breakthroughs that you have in your life and really do something with them, because that's one of the skills that I've developed over the past 7 years and through my experience being sick was, figuring out how to integrate all the stuff that came in and use it and not go backwards. If I went backwards, I would not be here like I am today talking about this. And so it's something that I'm really, really passionate about, and I want to help people with. And so if you find that interesting, you can shoot me a DM on Instagram. You can, I think my email's in my bio, I don't know. And then, we'll have a website launching hopefully within the next couple weeks of this coming out. And that's, that's where we're going to go forward. So to anyone who finds that interesting, please reach out, and, hopefully I can be of service with that. So for those of you who are continuing to take the ride with me, I appreciate that so much, and I will see you next time on Creating Genius.